Vincent Ashford stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. At 42, he had built Ashford Technologies from a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire. People called him the Silicon Fortress because nothing seemed to penetrate his icy exterior. His face rarely showed emotion, his voice carried the weight of careful calculation, and his schedule ran with machine-like precision. The walls of his office displayed awards and magazine covers, each one celebrating his success. But what those glossy images never showed was the emptiness that filled every corner of his life. Vincent had learned the hard way that money attracted two things: opportunity and betrayal. 3 years ago, his former business partner and closest friend had stolen proprietary technology and sold it to competitors. The lawsuit had been messy, public, and deeply personal. Since then, Vincent had built walls around himself, walls so thick that even sunlight struggled to get through. His mansion reflected this philosophy perfectly. The sprawling estate sat on 5 acres of manicured grounds, with marble floors that echoed footsteps, rooms so pristine they looked like museum exhibits, and a silence so complete it felt almost sacred. But maintaining this fortress proved surprisingly difficult. Vincent could not seem to keep household staff for more than a few weeks. Some grew uncomfortable with his cold demeanor, others made mistakes he could not forgive, and a few had tried to take advantage of his wealth in small, pathetic ways. Patricia Wells, his previous maid, had been the final straw. She had seemed perfect at first, efficient and quiet. Then Vincent discovered she had been photographing his personal documents and selling information to tabloid journalists. The betrayal, though minor compared to his business partner's treachery, had reinforced his belief that everyone had a price. That morning, Vincent sat in his study reviewing another application. The file belonged to Grace Holland, and he expected nothing different from the dozens before her. But when she walked through the door, something shifted in the air. "Good morning, Mr. Ashford." Grace extended her hand with a confident smile. "I understand this position comes with a reputation for being impossible. I thought I would apply anyway because I have never been very good at following conventional wisdom." Vincent studied her carefully. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, with auburn hair pulled into a practical bun and green eyes that sparkled with intelligence. Her handshake was firm, her posture relaxed. Most applicants seemed nervous or overly eager to please. Grace seemed neither. "Tell me about your work history." Vincent kept his tone neutral. "I have worked in hospitality for 12 years, everything from hotel management to private household care." Grace settled into the chair across from him without being invited, which should have annoyed him but somehow did not. "I have also raised a daughter on my own, which taught me more about patience, creativity, and problem-solving than any professional training ever could." "A daughter." Vincent's expression hardened slightly. "This position requires long hours and complete dedication." "I understand." Grace met his gaze without flinching. "Lily is 7 now and quite independent. My mother lives nearby and helps when needed, but I believe in being transparent. If you need me to stay late occasionally, that can be arranged. If you need me to live here full-time, that would not work. I will never apologize for being a mother, Mr. Ashford. It is the most important job I have ever had." Vincent found himself oddly impressed by her directness. Most people told him what they thought he wanted to hear. Grace simply told him the truth. "Why do you want this position?" He leaned back in his chair. "Honestly?" Grace's smile turned slightly mischievous. "The pay is excellent, and I need to save for Lily's education. But also, I have read about you online. People say you are impossible to work for, that you expect perfection and offer nothing in return. I thought that sounded like a challenge worth accepting." "You think you can handle me?" Vincent raised an eyebrow. "I think you are probably not as impossible as you pretend to be." Grace tilted her head thoughtfully. "People who build walls that high are usually protecting something vulnerable. I'm good at finding doors that others miss." The comment should have ended the interview. Vincent did not appreciate amateur psychology, especially from strangers. But something about Grace's confidence, mixed with genuine warmth, made him pause. He found himself offering what he rarely gave anyone, a chance. 1-week trial period. Vincent's tone remained businesslike. You will maintain the main living areas, prepare meals, and handle basic household management. I value privacy, punctuality, and discretion above all else. Break any of these rules and the arrangement ends immediately. Understood. Grace stood and extended her hand again. I promise to exceed your expectations, Mr. Ashford, or at the very least, to surprise you. As she left, Vincent remained seated, his fingers drumming against the armrest. Something about Grace Holland unsettled him in ways he could not quite name. She seemed too genuine, too comfortable in her own skin. In his experience, people like that either had nothing to hide or were exceptionally skilled at hiding everything. That afternoon, Vincent hatched a plan. He would test Grace the same way he tested everyone who entered his life. He would create a situation that revealed true character, that showed whether someone could be trusted or would inevitably disappoint him. In his study, Vincent opened the wall safe and withdrew several stacks of cash, each bundle containing $10,000. He arranged them carelessly on his desk, then deliberately left the safe door hanging open. A few loose bills he dropped on the floor, as if they had fallen accidentally. Then he positioned himself in the leather armchair, tilting his head back and closing his eyes to feign sleep. His heart beat steadily as he waited. This test had become his ritual, his way of confirming what he already knew about human nature. People couldn't resist temptation when they thought no one was watching. Grace would be no different. She would see the money and her true self would emerge. Perhaps she would take just one bill, or maybe she would be bolder. Either way, Vincent would have his answer. Through barely open eyelids, he watched the door. Any moment now, Grace would arrive for her first official cleaning duty. Any moment now, his suspicions would be confirmed. The frozen heart that had kept him safe for so long would remain exactly as it was, protected, isolated, and absolutely certain that trust was a luxury only fools could afford. The study door opened with a gentle creak, and Grace stepped inside carrying a basket filled with cleaning supplies. She hummed softly under her breath, a melody Vincent did not recognize, but found strangely soothing. Through his half-closed eyes, he watched her pause just inside the doorway, taking in the room with an appreciative gaze. "What a beautiful space," Grace spoke quietly, as if to herself. "All these books must hold 1,000 stories. Too bad they probably never get read anymore." She moved deeper into the room, setting her basket down near the bookshelf. Vincent kept his breathing steady and even, maintaining the illusion of sleep. His muscles remained relaxed, despite the tension coiling in his chest. This was the moment that mattered, the moment when people revealed who they truly were. Grace began dusting the shelves with careful, methodical movements. She handled each book as if it were precious, wiping the spines gently before returning them to their exact positions. Her humming continued, filling the usually silent room with something that felt almost like life. Vincent found himself oddly distracted by the sound, by the way she seemed completely comfortable in his space. Then her gaze landed on the desk. Vincent felt his heartbeat quicken despite himself. The money sat in plain view, stacks of bills arranged carelessly, the safe door hanging open like an invitation. Grace froze mid-motion, her cloth suspended in the air. She stared at the money for a long moment, and Vincent prepared himself for the inevitable disappointment. But Grace did not reach for her pocket. Instead, she walked slowly to the desk, her expression shifting from surprise to something that looked almost like concern. She glanced toward Vincent, checking if he was truly asleep, then bent down to pick up the scattered bills from the floor. Vincent watched through narrowed eyes, waiting for her to slip the money into her apron or tuck it away somewhere. His jaw clenched as he prepared to sit up and end this charade.
But Grace did something completely unexpected. She smoothed each bill carefully as if they were wrinkled fabric that needed ironing. Then she placed them on the desk and began arranging them into a neat stack. No, wait, she was not just stacking them. Grace's fingers moved with surprising creativity, folding and positioning the bills into a specific shape. Vincent's confusion deepened as he watched her work. What was she doing? The money began to take form, curves and angles coming together in a pattern he recognized with sudden, startling clarity. She was making a heart. Grace stepped back, examining her work with a satisfied nod. The cash now sat arranged in a perfect heart shape, each bill carefully positioned to create the curved top and pointed bottom. But she was not finished. From her apron pocket, she pulled a small notepad and pen, the kind people used for grocery lists. She scribbled something quickly, then placed the note beside her creation. Vincent's breath caught in his throat. His entire body wanted to move, to sit up and demand an explanation, but shock kept him frozen in place. In all his years of testing people, of watching them reveal their greed and weakness, no one had ever done anything like this. "There," Grace spoke softly, admiring her handiwork. "Money deserves to be treated with respect, too. My grandmother used to say that money is like water. It flows to wherever it feels welcome. Maybe if you arrange it nicely, it will want to stay and bring friends." She picked up her cleaning supplies and continued working, moving to the windows now. She opened them slightly, letting fresh air circulate through the room. The breeze carried the scent of the garden below, mixing with the smell of lemon-scented cleaner. Grace wiped the glass in smooth, circular motions, still humming her mysterious tune. Vincent could not hold back any longer. A sound escaped his lips, half laugh and half exhale of disbelief. It came out louder than he intended, echoing in the quiet room. Grace spun around, her eyes wide with surprise. "Mr. Ashford, I thought you were sleeping. You startled me half to death." Vincent sat up properly, trying to compose himself into his usual stern expression, but something in his face must have given him away, because Grace's surprise melted into a knowing smile. "How long have you been awake?" she asked, tilting her head. "Long enough." Vincent's voice came out rougher than usual. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Long enough to wonder exactly what you think you are doing with my money." Grace glanced at the desk, at her heart-shaped arrangement, and her smile widened. "Oh, that. I hope you do not mind. I know it seems silly, but I have this habit of making things beautiful whenever I can. Life is too short for everything to be strictly practical, do you not think?" "You made my money into a heart," Vincent stated the obvious, still struggling to process what had happened. "I did." Grace walked back to the desk, looking at her creation with obvious pride. "At home, Lily and I have a tradition. Whenever we save coins, we arrange them into patterns, sometimes flowers, sometimes stars, sometimes hearts. She says it makes the money happy, and happy money grows faster. I know that's not how economics works, but it's a sweet thought. When I saw your bills scattered on the floor, I thought they looked lonely, so I gave them some shape and purpose." Vincent stared at the note she left. He could see the words now, written in neat, cheerful handwriting. "Dear Money, you are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Signed, Grace and the Universe." Below the message, she had drawn a small smiley face wearing a tiny crown. "You left a note for my money," Vincent said slowly, as if the words made sense when spoken out loud. "Well, positive reinforcement works for everything, even currency." Grace shrugged, completely unbothered by his incredulous tone. "Besides, I figured a busy man like you probably doesn't take time to appreciate what you have. Money works hard too, you know. It travels around, facilitates dreams, feeds families. The least we can do is acknowledge its efforts." Vincent opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. What could he possibly say to that? In all his life, across countless business deals and personal interactions, no one had ever said anything remotely similar. Grace had taken his test, his trap designed to expose greed and weakness, and turned it into something so strange and innocent that he had no framework for understanding it. "You could have taken it," the words came out before he could stop them. "No one would have known." Grace's expression shifted, the playfulness fading into something more serious. She met his eyes directly, and Vincent saw a depth there he had not noticed before. "I would have known," Grace said quietly. Mr. Ashford, I understand you have reasons not to trust people. I can see it in the way you look at everyone, like you're waiting for them to disappoint you. But I didn't take this job to steal from you or take advantage of your wealth. I took it because I need honest work to support my daughter, and because I believe even the coldest houses can feel like homes with the right care. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. Besides, what good would one stack of your money do me if I lost my integrity getting it? I'd rather be poor and honest than wealthy and ashamed. That's what I want to teach Lily. That's the legacy I want to leave her. Vincent felt something crack inside his chest, a tiny fissure in the ice that had encased his heart for so long. He wanted to dismiss Grace's words as naive idealism, the kind of sentiment people clung to before life taught them harder lessons. But the sincerity in her voice, the absolute conviction in her eyes, made it impossible to be cynical. "You are either remarkably foolish or remarkably brave," Vincent finally managed. "Can't I be both?" Grace's smile returned, warm and genuine. "Most of the best people in history were a little of each." She returned to her cleaning, moving around the room as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everything had changed. The study felt different now, lighter somehow. The heart-shaped money sat on Vincent's desk like a challenge to everything he believed about human nature. Vincent picked up the note she left, running his thumb over the small, crowned smiley face. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside him, unexpected and genuine. It started as a chuckle but grew into full laughter, the kind that shook his shoulders and brought tears to his eyes. He couldn't remember the last time he had laughed like this, freely and without calculation. Grace glanced over, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "There it is. That's much better than the frozen face you usually wear." "I don't have a frozen face," Vincent protested weakly, still grinning. "Mr. Ashford, I've seen warmer expressions on marble statues," Grace teased gently. "But I think there's hope for you yet." As she finished cleaning and prepared to leave, Vincent found himself not wanting her to go. The room would return to its usual silence, its careful emptiness. For the first time in years, that prospect felt unbearably lonely. "Grace," he called out as she reached the door. She turned back, eyebrows raised in question. "The heart money. Leave it there." "Really?" Her face lit up with delight. "Really," Vincent confirmed, surprising himself. "Consider it a reminder that not everyone is what I expect them to be." After she left, Vincent sat alone with his thoughts and his heart-shaped money. He had designed a test to confirm his darkest beliefs about human nature. Instead, Grace Holland had shown him something he had forgotten existed: genuine goodness without ulterior motives. The ice around his heart had not melted completely, but for the first time in 3 years, Vincent felt warmth beginning to seep through the cracks.
The next morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through the mansion's tall windows, painting everything in shades of amber and honey. Vincent woke earlier than usual, drawn from sleep by sounds he had not heard in his home for years. Laughter, light footsteps, the cheerful clatter of dishes being arranged with care rather than cold efficiency. He found Grace in the kitchen, windows thrown open to let in the morning breeze. She had tied her hair back with a bright yellow ribbon, and her apron bore flower handprints that suggested baking was already underway. On the counter sat a small vase filled with wildflowers, their petals still dotted with morning dew. "Good morning, Mr. Ashford." Grace looked up from the stove where something delicious was sizzling. "I hope you do not mind, but I brought some fresh herbs from my garden. Your kitchen had excellent equipment, but no soul. I thought we could fix that." Vincent stood in the doorway, uncertain how to enter this transformed space. His kitchen had always been a place of stark functionality, all stainless steel and cold precision. Now it felt alive, warm with cooking smells and natural light. A small radio played jazz softly in the corner, the kind of music his mother used to love. "What are you making?" he asked, moving closer despite himself. "Blueberry pancakes with lemon zest." Grace flipped one expertly. "My grandmother's recipe. She always said breakfast should be in celebration, not just fuel. Plus, I read that you skip meals when you work. That stops today." "I have a nutritionist who prepares my meal plans," Vincent said automatically, though the protest sounded weak even to his own ears.
A nutritionist who is not here at 6 in the morning making sure you actually eat. Grace raised an eyebrow. Sit down, Mr. Ashford. Let someone take care of you for once. The command should have irritated him. Vincent Ashford took orders from no one. But something in Grace's tone, firm yet caring, made him pull out a chair and sit. She placed a plate before him moments later, the pancakes arranged in a neat stack, topped with fresh berries and a drizzle of honey. I cannot remember the last time someone cooked breakfast for me, Vincent admitted quietly. Then it has been too long. Grace poured him coffee, somehow knowing without asking that he took it black. Food tastes better when it comes with care. That is the secret ingredient no recipe mentions. Vincent took a bite and felt something unexpected. Not just the burst of flavor, perfectly balanced between sweet and tart, but a sensation of being nurtured. It had been so long since anyone had done something kind for him without wanting something in return. The feeling left him momentarily speechless. Over the following days, Grace continued her quiet revolution of his home. She did not change everything at once, but small touches appeared like spring flowers pushing through winter snow. A throw blanket in the living room, soft and inviting. Books pulled from shelves and left open on tables, as if inviting him to read again. Fresh fruit arranged in bowls, more for beauty than practicality. One afternoon, Vincent found her talking to his plant houses, which had always been maintained by professional landscapers but never thrived. "Come on now, you stubborn thing," Grace addressed a drooping fern with mock sternness. "You live in a mansion with perfect conditions. The least you could do is look alive. What kind of example are you setting for the orchids?" "Are you scolding my plants?" Vincent couldn't help but smile. "Someone has to." Grace did not look up from her work, gently pruning dead leaves. "They're depressed because nobody talks to them. Plants are like people, Mr. Ashford. They need attention and affection, not just water and sunlight." "That is not scientifically proven." "Maybe not, but it doesn't hurt to try." Grace finally met his eyes. "You might be surprised what grows when you give it a little love." The conversation lingered in Vincent's mind long after she returned to her other duties. He began noticing how everything Grace touched seemed to come alive. The mansion, which had always felt like a museum, slowly transformed into something that resembled an actual home. But the real change came on Thursday afternoon when Grace arrived with an unexpected guest. "Mr. Ashford, I hope you do not mind." Grace stood at the front door, holding the hand of a small girl with the same auburn hair and green eyes. "My mother had an emergency appointment, and I could not find alternative care. This is Lily. She will be quiet, I promise." Lily looked up at Vincent with wide, curious eyes. She clutched a worn stuffed rabbit under one arm and wore a dress with mismatched buttons, clearly chosen by herself. Vincent froze, uncertain how to respond. Children were entirely outside his experience, small, unpredictable beings who operated on logic he did not understand. "Hello," Lily said solemnly. "You have a very big house. Do you get lost sometimes?" The question was so earnest that Vincent found himself answering honestly. "Sometimes, I do." "That's okay," Lily nodded sagely. "When I get lost, I follow the sunlight. It always knows the way home." Grace squeezed her daughter's hand gently. "Remember what we discussed. You brought your coloring books and puzzles. You can sit in the corner of whatever room I'm cleaning, and you must be very responsible." "I will be so responsible that nobody will even know I'm here," Lily declared with the confidence only a 7-year-old could muster. Vincent should have sent them away. His home was no place for children, with its expensive art and fragile objects. But something stopped him. Perhaps it was the hope in Grace's eyes, or the way Lily looked around with wonder rather than greed. Whatever the reason, he heard himself saying something unexpected. "The library has good light for coloring. You can set up there." Lily's face exploded in a smile that could have powered the entire city. Grace mouthed a silent thank you, her gratitude so genuine that Vincent had to look away. 2 hours later, Vincent found himself abandoning his work to check on them. He told himself he was simply ensuring nothing valuable got damaged, but truthfully, curiosity drew him. He discovered Lily sitting cross-legged on the library floor, surrounded by an explosion of crayons and paper. Grace worked nearby, dusting shelves while keeping a watchful eye on her daughter. "Mr. Ashford," Lily announced without looking up from her drawing, "I'm making you a picture." "You don't have to do that," Vincent said awkwardly. "I know, but I want to." Lily selected a blue crayon with great deliberation. "Mama says you live here all alone, which sounds lonely, so I'm drawing you a family." She held up her artwork. The drawing showed a large house, recognizably his despite the childish proportions. In front stood 3 stick figures, one tall with dark hair labeled Mr. Ashford, one medium-sized with red hair labeled Mama, and one small with a big smile labeled Me. Above them, a bright yellow sun wore a crown, and flowers grew everywhere in impossible colors. "We can be your family," Lily explained matter-of-factly. "Not a real family like with marriage and stuff, because that's complicated, but choosing families. Those are the best kind because everyone decides to love each other on purpose." Vincent felt his throat tighten with emotion he could not name. He knelt down to Lily's level, studying the drawing more carefully. Nobody had ever offered him something so pure, so freely given without expectation of return. The feeling left him momentarily speechless. Over the following days, Grace continued her quiet revolution of his home. She did not change everything at once, but small touches appeared like spring flowers pushing through winter snow. A throw blanket in the living room, soft and inviting. Books pulled from shelves and left open on tables, as if inviting him to read again. Fresh fruit arranged in bowls, more for beauty than practicality. One afternoon, Vincent found her talking to his plant houses, which had always been maintained by professional landscapers but never thrived. "Come on now, you stubborn thing," Grace addressed a drooping fern with mock sternness. "You live in a mansion with perfect conditions. The least you could do is look alive. What kind of example are you setting for the orchids?" "Are you scolding my plants?" Vincent couldn't help but smile. "Someone has to." Grace did not look up from her work, gently pruning dead leaves. "They're depressed because nobody talks to them. Plants are like people, Mr. Ashford. They need attention and affection, not just water and sunlight." "That is not scientifically proven." "Maybe not, but it doesn't hurt to try." Grace finally met his eyes. "You might be surprised what grows when you give it a little love." The conversation lingered in Vincent's mind long after she returned to her other duties. He began noticing how everything Grace touched seemed to come alive. The mansion, which had always felt like a museum, slowly transformed into something that resembled an actual home. But the real change came on Thursday afternoon when Grace arrived with an unexpected guest. "Mr. Ashford, I hope you do not mind." Grace stood at the front door, holding the hand of a small girl with the same auburn hair and green eyes. "My mother had an emergency appointment, and I could not find alternative care. This is Lily. She will be quiet, I promise." Lily looked up at Vincent with wide, curious eyes. She clutched a worn stuffed rabbit under one arm and wore a dress with mismatched buttons, clearly chosen by herself. Vincent froze, uncertain how to respond. Children were entirely outside his experience, small, unpredictable beings who operated on logic he did not understand. "Hello," Lily said solemnly.